Hello and welcome to our CASA pre-service training. I want to really take an opportunity and thank you for choosing to potentially volunteer with our children as a CASA volunteer advocate. You will make a greater difference than you could ever imagine. And as we go through the training, I'm going to tell you stories of impact that I know about from our own program, but there are so many more, and I don't want to belittle in any way the important work that you will be doing. The ability to help these children who are sometimes in the worst moments of their life is a unique experience, and it takes a special person. And we want to thank you for being that special person, being willing to be in their lives. So what I am going to do is I am going to play a video that will give you just a tiny impact of what has happened in the past and kind of the impact that you could potentially have made.
Coolest case that I've ever had, and I say that not lightly, is a mom that she had two children, but the 18-month-old had been consistently coming into the hospital for failure to thrive. And everyone had lost complete patience with this woman. The child had asthma, the child was nutritionally neglected, and the children came into care. And when I was appointed to the case, the first thing I did was I went out to her mobile home. She lived on her parents' property in a mobile home. She was a very young mom. And I was trying to explain to her the court order, and I was a young volunteer and didn't really know quite how to convey to her what I did, so I'd taken my court order with me, and I was having the conversation with her, trying to show her how I was going to be interacting with her family through the course of this. And I realized as I was trying to get her to read this that she couldn't read. And I went back to the caseworker and talked to the caseworker, and come to find out that she was very proud and she hated the fact that she was on governmental assistance, and she would get all of this formula that she would have to feed to her child, and because she couldn't read the appropriate amount of formula, she was greatly watering down the formula and nutritionally neglecting her child. And she smoked, and no one had ever told her, and she didn't know, that smoking is horrible for a child with asthma. So when we went back to the doctor and asked, have you explained the appropriate amount of formula she should get, or have you explained the fact that smoking is harmful to a child with asthma, they hadn't. When we told Mom that both the fact that she was watering down her formula and the fact that smoking was causing the child with asthma to fail to thrive, she literally fell to her knees and wept. She didn't know. And through just simply acknowledging that and be willing to ask those questions and really find out what made her tick, we were able to get them back together.
So really, just one little thing made such a huge impact, and that's why you all matter so much. And so I always want to say and start these trainings with the thank you, thank you, thank you. So I know that training is due to start soon, and how is this all going to work? So we're going to take a minute and we're going to go over it. So you're going to go on something called Jotform. You'll have a link to the Jotform. Basically, you're going to follow a link. And what it is going to be is a series of things, like there'll be a video for you to watch where I will do some instruction. There will be some articles for you to read where you will have a document that you will click and it will open up in either your phone or your tablet or your computer or whatever you're using to do this training online. And you will read that article. At the end of video sections and at the end of readings, there may be a question for you to answer. It could be an opinion-based thing, a question just based on the material, sort of like we did at school. There won't be tons and tons. Don't look for 100,000 question multiple choice quiz or anything like that. We just want to make sure you're understanding the material, and when your answers get submitted to us, it helps us understand what we should emphasize at our weekly video in-person meetings. There might be quizzes like that too, where you have to pick. So sometimes they're questions and sometimes they're quizzes and things like that. Then on the video nights that we have chosen, and I'm typically there on a Tuesday night for our program, but they could be on a different time, we will meet together. Now, what's going to happen at that video meeting? Well, we're going to work cases together. We're going to discuss what kind of recommendations we should be doing. What do we think this? Have they considered that? We're going to really dig deep into the work that you will actually be doing with the children and what that looks like. And so we will be practicing every week. And that's what that time is for. It's also why we have so much time blocked out, because we don't want to stop and have to rush through something just because we're trying to get through all the training and the video working cases and things like that. We want to make sure we have sufficient time. This is also one opportunity for you to ask me questions as we go through. Well, why would you word it this way? Or why would you do it this way? Or why is this? What could I do? What are some of the recommendations that I could make? So many things that you'll have questions on. If you have not already asked me, we'll answer those questions. Or if you came up with a particularly amazing question, I might bring that up again, not saying that you gave it to me, but that saying, hey, I had this question this week. Let's talk about this because I want everybody to learn from it. It was a great question. These will be very interactive sessions. These are not going to be another one where you're kind of sitting, reading, watching, taking in all that information. These are the sessions where we are going to interactively together, in individual and in small groups sometimes, we will be doing the work. This is practical. This is not just theoretical. We're going to practically pull into cases and things like that. Now, in addition to these online sessions and then the weekly video meetings, you will be required to do court observation in your actual local court. And if you are with my program, I will tell you that we will arrange that with you if you are with another program, because sometimes we have people from other programs join us. You will have to have that court observation there. You will set that up through your program. You'll also have to do some additional local training. We will train you for our court reports and our monthly reports here in this session. And then you will have to learn how your program does it. Most of them are similar. They might be slightly different. The other thing that everybody will have to do, regardless of the program, is background checks. Now, these are substantial, and if you haven't already started that, then that should be done sometime very, very soon. If you've already done it, then you've checked that box, and we're probably waiting for them to come back. They do take a while. When you've completed all this training, and you've done your court observation, and your background check comes back clear, that's when we'll be ready to swear in and move on to the next steps, which we'll talk about in the training. Okay, so I've already kind of talked about this, but questions. I don't mind questions. When we're in those weekly video meetings, I don't care if you interrupt something that I'm saying because you have a question. I don't mind if that you are in the middle of doing that individual training prior. We'll call that pre-work. That's the work you'll do previous to attending the sessions via video, the pre-work. I don't mind if you shoot me a text or an email and say, hey, I have this question, ask away. Now, sometimes I might put you and say, hey, that's a great question. Skip it for now. It will come up, or later in that day's training, you will find the answer to your question. So if I may refer you back to continue on with the lessons, I appreciate your question, but if I'm already going to answer it in the training, there's no need to answer it there. But most of the time, I will go ahead and I will answer your question at that moment. The other thing is we do have some expectations and group agreements. Now, we will work these out for our video sessions together during that first session. That's part of what we'll do. However, generally speaking, I am expecting you to do your pre-work. I do have the expectation that you are going in here and you are learning and you are going to be an active participant in this training. So what's it going to look like? Well, our schedule for this session and for most sessions, weeks officially begin on a Tuesday, and what that means is our video sessions are primarily going to be on a Tuesday. Now, if this is an unusual session and we are meeting on Wednesdays or a different day because of scheduling purposes, we obviously created this training and we're trying to make it multifunctional. So whatever day of the week that your video meetings are on, that is going to be when we kind of begin the week. This is almost like a session 0. It is not the first session. The first session, the pre-work is done prior to that official meeting via video. Your pre-work does need to be done by Sunday night. Your pre-work does need to be done basically 48 hours before your video session starts. So if your video session starts on a Friday, it needs to be done on a Wednesday night. If we are meeting like we normally do on a Tuesday evening, then it needs to be done on Sunday evening. Why is that? Well, there's work that we do when we collect all the things that you've done. It'll send us forms as you answer your questions. We read through that. We modify what we're going to do and update what we're going to do in those video sessions. And as we prepare to make sure, hey, we've had a couple of people that were confused on this or had the same question. And so we want to be able to address that. We need time to do that because although training is a great part of what we do, it is not the only thing we do, and we also deal with child emergencies, things like that. So I can't say, hey, have it done by noon of that day, we'll be able to get it done. I don't know what's going to happen in the office. And so we need that 48 hours worth of time. And that also, just to emphasize expectations, we need that pre-work to be completed weekly. I understand people get sick, things happen, emergencies happen. You might get slightly behind. I urge you to try and do your best not to, but we do get it. The intent is that you're doing that training, you're learning, and then what ends up happening is a lot of what you've learned that week, we are applying in that weekly video session. So if you haven't had a chance to do that, you're going to be at a deficit when we have our interactive case plans and things like that. Okay, check your emails. So typically I will send out an email either the night right after we finish that video training or sometimes the next day. Just reminding you, it'll have the link for the next week's training in it so you can follow along. It will have any questions or documents or paperwork or anything else that we need to send to you. Now that email will come from me, or if we find that there's a problem with the training, we will also potentially say, hey, we noticed that there's this glitch, it's fixed now. So just watch for those emails from me. And like I said, typically I try to send that email out with the next week's link and everything like that, or the next week's information or classes and everything like that night right after training, but potentially it might be the next day. Now, as for the video sessions, they are going to have the same link every time. So your training will have a new for you to do on your own. We'll have a different link each time, but that training where we come together and we work together on the case plans, that is going to have the same link. Typically that'll be a Zoom link or it will be a GoToMeeting link depending on which video platform we are using at the time. Sometimes one has glitches, and so we typically will pick one or the other. We do like to use Zoom for the most part, so that Zoom link would be the same, but you never know, it could be GoToMeeting. Volunteer manual and handouts, those are the things that I will be emailing you in that email. Those are for you. Those kind of documents and different things like that are for you to keep. Now, there are going to be times when I will ask you to either print or save so that we can work interactively. There will be times where I will send you a document and then I'm going to say, but don't I would ask you to print it, but don't read it. Now, if you don't have a printer, please feel free to come to your local CASA office and get that printed for you. In addition to that, if you know that's not feasible because of your work schedule or whatnot, let us know, or you can just download it as a PDF. Most of them are PDF files anyway, and save it. The only thing is there are some things that we want to do together interactively, and so those documents I want you to don't read, because I want you to kind of have predetermined things in your head before we make it to that session where we work on it together. But I have found that if people print it out or they keep it separate, it's really easy for them to flip to the correct page, and we're all on the same thing, reading the same thing at the same time. Now, the other thing is, so you could save that in a special file so that you only open those when you want to. I know some people don't like to print anymore. I still like a little bit of paper, so I'm old school. That's okay. One of the other things is any of the documents and the manuals and the handouts and everything like that that we send you, you can keep that in a file that is your part of training to keep. And I know a lot of people love going over some of those documents and reusing them at the appropriate time as a volunteer. So that's okay. All right. That is it. Now, if you have any questions about anything that I have talked about today, that is fine. Just go ahead and respond to the email that has the link for this video. Email me and I will be happy to answer any and all of your questions. Other than that, I look forward to seeing you all next Tuesday, or whatever day it is. Primarily, we like to train on Tuesday nights. And thank you again. What you do really, really matters, and it means a lot to us. So, I wish you all well,